30 seconds. This budget hearing of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Clerk.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of the Tuesday, February 18, 2020 budget hearing of the Franklin Township Council was provided as required by law.
Pledge time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilman Embarrasson?
Here.
Councilman Chase? Councilwoman Francois?
Here.
Councilman Galtieri?
Here.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Onijaka? Councilwoman Pruitt? Councilman Vasanella?
Here.
Councilman Wright?
Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are open to the public, limited to a half an hour, 2 minutes per person. Anyone wishing to speak, please come up.
Mayor, seeing no one come forward from the public, a motion to close the public portion of the budget hearing.
Motion, do we have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. Mr. Manager, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. If I could have you turn to the tab for tax collector, which is, I guess, second row in the middle.
I heard that's really the collector of revenue.
It is. It's the collector of revenue. So I would like to have that corrected for future reference. It is, in fact, the collector of revenue.
Her title is correctly on the agenda as Collector of Revenue after her name.
Thank you, agenda maker. I had a feeling you would get it correct. She's all over that, wasn't she? So rather than belabor this, so Rosanna Gutierrez, our collector, is here to my right to answer any questions. As you see when looking at her budget, that it is relatively simple and straightforward. The bulk of her budget is in printing and binding, which is the printing of the tax bills and water bills, which is what the biggest expense in her office is. The budget reflected here for 2020 is $14,488, which is a decrease of $612. So, anyone have anything that they wish to ask of on the collector's budget? Going once?
Just, I don't know if it falls under collector. The forms of payment. Does that fall under collecting?
The forms of payment.
Meaning, just to be clear on the, when people go to pay online, their options.
So it's not part of the budget, but if you're asking me a question as to whether the collector, it's more of an IT function, how people pay bills, but certainly we accept payment online.
We'll wait till IT then.
With credit cards. And you can pay with a credit card online, or you can pay ACH online.
Because I know a few years ago, there was I think they had certain cards and other cards, and they said they'd get that in the pipeline and charge accordingly whatever the fee is to the public that chooses that option.
Okay, so we accept Visa and MasterCard.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
With the new WIP system, they do accept American Express.
Okay, because
I
it
remember
was
last
2
year
years
that
ago.
was an issue.
We
Yes.
were asking, I was asking, they said it was in the pipeline. So now it is online.
Yes.
They can do it. They have to just pay the appropriate fee that we're charged.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we're not making,
and that's more of a concern with tax than water.
yes, just
Because it's a much bigger bill.
So we're not making any money on it. The fee that we put on,
No.
and it will be whatever their specific.
There is
Visa
no
or American
administrative
Express
fee for
charges.
us. It goes to the credit card company.
Okay, but they're all available now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Those.
Okay.
All right.
Anyone else?
Any other budget questions for the collector of revenues?
Okay. Thank you, Rosanna. Okay, next up is municipal court, and it is towards the back of the book near the library and interlocal. It's it really looks like the next to the last row says court. Okay, so Kayla Martinez, our court administrator, is here. If you have any questions, the 2020 budget is proposed at $24,150, which is a $1,200 decrease from the 2019 budget. There have been adjustments done, as you see on the right-hand column, difference in proposed budget. There was an increase in equipment repair and maintenance of $1,000. That's to reflect an increase in cost to, I believe, the copier maintenance agreement in your office. Oh, the recorder. I'm sorry, the recorder. Right, the court recorder. But then reductions where it was appropriate to bring them down to current level of spending on most other lines. So just, and you know what, so I'm going to go outside the lines here a little bit and just talk about the court for a second. One, we, meaning me, I guess, me, the manager, has been absolutely thrilled with the management of our court since Kayla took over. We now have a second certified court administrator. Raquel got her certification, and actually the actual certificate came today. So this is very current. But I did have my monthly meeting with Kayla today, so this is all fresh. I'm going to ask Kayla a question. Kayla, would you please tell council about your experiences with our new municipal court judge?
She's great. She's doing really well. She's doing really well. She knows the system. She knows her sentencing guidelines, and she's moving court quickly at night, which is really good for us.
So the actual court session times have so far been decreased pretty significantly with the new judge. She's very efficient in the courtroom.
Yes.
So that was great to hear. That's the first report I had today, and I said, ooh, good timing. Let's share it with council tonight. So there we go.
So we did something right.
Got it right. That's the way it's going right now. Looks good.
Good.
So excellent. Okay.
Excellent.
If there's no other questions for Kayla, we can move on to the next, which is your clerk over there to my right. And yes, sir.
Want the next time bigger than?
Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. I mean, the only way it would be bigger is if you had much bigger pieces of paper. So I apologize, but Excel spreadsheets don't print bigger when you print landscape on a letter-sized piece of paper.
Maybe we could each get some of those $20,000 drafting tables.
There you go. Or I'll be more than happy to buy you a $1.99 magnifying glass. That probably would get more use.
No,
Don't use my name. You should make it bigger.
Will said he can see, and he's 20 years younger than us.
Madam Clerk.
Clerk is way in the beginning. And in this particular case, oh, look, you came and sat next to me. How nice. I thought you were over there. You snuck up on me. First is the mayor and council budget, which is flat at $18,362. A lot of these lines in your mayor and council budget are specific, and that's why we're able to kind of budget to the dollar here on some of these things, dealing with your memberships and costs for.
I don't see anything on here that says 18,000.
Mayor and council is the header. It's the.
Where does it say 18,000?
18,000.
Oh, that's the water utility. The water utility.
No, he's talking about the budget.
Not salaries. There's nothing to do with salaries. The OE budget, mayor and council.
Okay, you're talking about this.
The OE budgets, yeah, not your salary budget, but the OE budget. Mayor and council OE budget, $18,362 flat. This includes things like costs for business cards when necessary, or any books or publications, membership fees, conferences and meetings is the bulk of this, for your conferences and primarily the League of Municipality. You know, that's, and professional association dues is a big one too. Those two almost, you know, they make up about half of the entire budget.
What are the other contractual services?
There's
Items.
charge to that is there's rent for the Hageman House, rent for the Van Loo House, rent for the Sampson athletic fields at $1. Rent for Consolidated Railroad, believe it or not, we still pay $154 a year for them. And weddings performed by the mayor is the bulk at $6,000. That's money in, money out. You have to budget the appropriation so that you can budget the revenue side.
That's not the money that, I don't understand why you have to budget for the.
Because we receive money from people that then gets paid out. It's just like we receive money from the Board of Education. We have to budget it on both sides of the budget.
Got it.
Money in, money out. Has to be budgeted as an appropriation and a revenue.
Well, what does it go out to then?
Well, in this case, it would have, in some cases, it would have gone to the mayor, but in this case, the mayor gives the money to the shelter.
But thanks for asking.
For budgetary reasons, if people are paying fees, that's revenue.
Yeah.
There's the associated appropriation for that revenue to pay
Just like with
pay the mayor.
with recreation, they pay a fee, and then that money
So,
goes.
but, well, no, not like
You
that.
mean,
So it's
you
like
mean-
the Board of Education, all right? So we have a shared service agreement with the Board of Education to fix all of their vehicles, all right? Remember, in their budget, they give us money, and the same exact equal amount that that's from the revenue side where they give it to us is where we spend it on the appropriation side. In this case, there's people giving it to us, paying the fee, and then there's us giving it to the mayor, the appropriation. That's
Okay, so the simple answer is that money goes to the mayor.
That's what I said.
Well,
Okay.
but only after a lot of other things.
But, yeah, I don't want it hanging in the air that the mayor keeps it.
He donates it, like he.
The mayor could keep it, he
donates it
chooses to
annually.
donate it.
Correct.
That we know.
Keep it.
No, I could keep, no, yes, I could.
Oh, he could absolutely keep it.
Yes. Back when Brian Levine was on, he asked that we include 50, when we upped the fee we upped the fee to $250, he said, can we up it to $300, and the mayor gets to keep $50 per wedding. So that is still in place, the people pay that $50, now all goes to the animal shelter.
And we 1099 mayors if they keep the fee.
Well, back when I was the mayor, you couldn't keep it. You had to donate it.
No, back when you
Back
were
then.
mayor, you didn't get anything.
Oh, we did get something.
I did?
Did
Okay.
donated.
Well, there was a fee
Good.
collected,
There was a
but the
fee.
fee collected didn't go to the mayor.
They
and
ne- it
That was
not
changed
allowed to go
under
to the
Mayor
mayor back
Levine.
then. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's change the subject.
Flipping page, clerk budget. And the clerk budget is proposed at $39,362, which is a decrease of $486. The big items here are legal advertising. Obviously, all of the legal advertising for the municipality that's required by law goes through the clerk's office. And then the other one is professional consultant and specialized services, which is the code, the municipal code. And the forever updating of our municipal code. Okay. Any questions on that one? I think the last one is elections. Getting there. Here.
The last page?
Printing and bonding.
Elections. Elections was budgeted at $29,500 in 2019 and is budgeted at $32,000 for 2020, this being a general election year. it goes up. There's more costs associated with a general election for.
The county now charges us for postage for the sample ballots for the primary.
Really?
Yes.
Is that new?
It started last year, yes.
Started last year, okay.
And I believe that's it for Ms. McCarthy. Any other questions? Well, she's not hard to find. She'll be up there in the corner. If we think of a question later, feel free to shout it out to her. I'm sure she'll shoot you an answer. Okay.
Denied.
Next will be fire prevention. John House. All the way on the right side. Oh, and Andrew Berardo along with him, the deputy director. I want all of council to look very, very carefully on the far right column on the fire prevention budget for the difference in proposed budget from 2019 to 2020. That's a very significant increase in the budget. It was proposed at $8,356 this year, up $5 from $8,351. That's not a typo. I'll let Mr. House explain to you why his budget went up $5.
One of the line items for the subscription services that we get, the code subscription service, went up $5.
I kid you not.
There's 3 subscriptions that we have to purchase, and they're exact amounts.
If you look at the 2019 budget, it was spent at 100%. And so I gave serious thought to rounding up to 8,360, but I thought it better just to leave it with the $5 increase as opposed to $9. And we might need it someday, Councilman. You're absolutely right. So anyway, this is John's office has always been very good, and they do have, in fairness to the other organizations that they support, a number of things are funded from the fire districts that we support. With various services. So the cost of our fire prevention office, this is the bare bones cost to kind of just run the office. All of the costs associated with things like aid to fire companies and response to fires during the day, and all of the related costs for that type of activity is funded through the fire service and through the fire districts.
And I see that you're very accurate in spending on printing and binding and on personnel expenses and the clothing and uniform. That's the one.
So I brought that up as well.
27 cents less.
Well, so the clothing and uniform John talked about in our prep meeting for this meeting, and it should also be explained that yes, it's spent pretty close to the limit. And then there's a significant amount over that limit, over that budget amount, that's spent either through monies from the fire districts or monies from the fire penalty trust. So yeah, he spends it all, but then spends more, but coming from other sources, and that's why it comes close to the number.
Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope, I think we're good, as long as you all are good.
Moving on.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it's my turn to talk a little bit. Community resources is the next thing on your agenda. Social services, community resources. Ordinarily, Diane Leach Thompson would be here. She's off today, actually, but I had a discussion with Diane, and so I'm going to let all of you in on some things that maybe most or if not all of you already know. One thing is that Diane is retiring on April 1st. And you'll have an opportunity to see her, trust me, before she's gone. But she's really not going anywhere. Diane and I have had some discussions about the future. One of the functions that Diane has performed for a number of years deals with emergency management, and Diane has been responsible for the emergency shelter annex of our emergency operating plan, and she's volunteered to continue to do that in a volunteer status going forward. So she's still going to be involved, and she's right around the corner, and she's offered her assistance in any way she can give it after she retires. But it's left us with a situation now that I want to try to explain to council as to where I'm looking to move everything going forward. The one mandatory requirement of our Community Resources Office, the statutory thing that we did there, was to provide general assistance, which is also known as municipal welfare. Our municipal welfare program is currently, as we speak, the last remaining municipal welfare program in Somerset County. Every other municipal welfare program is administered by Somerset County Board of Social Services. Somerset County Board of Social Services has a satellite office here almost across the street, across Franklin Boulevard from our social services office at 935 Hamilton Street. It is there that all families who receive assistance go, because we only administer municipal welfare to adults without children. It is there where adults without children go to receive SNAP, which people often refer to as food stamps, but SNAP and also to receive housing assistance. So our municipal welfare recipients only receive municipal welfare from us and then go to Somerset County Board of Social Services for all other services. We've had a high over 100 clients at one time. We currently have 22. So we have a significant decrease in the amount of adults receiving municipal welfare. We have our director retiring, and we have 2 full-time staff members and 1 part-time staff member remaining. And we've had a number of meetings, and I've had discussions with the director of the Somerset County Board of Social Services, really without any drop in service. Our adult municipal welfare recipients will have the opportunity to just go across the street and receive those same services from the Somerset County Board of Social Services. And then we can take our 2 social workers and our office coordinator that are currently working in the Community Resources Office and move them to the new youth center, where they'll be able to provide social welfare programs to the kids on the social worker end, and we have an office coordinator. Obviously, there's a demand for an office coordinator clerical position in the youth center. So that salary and that operating budget, I'm asking to remain the same, because we're looking to, once the youth center goes online, we'll be able to transfer all of that, including the personnel, to positions within the youth center. It's been met in my discussions with staff. Everything has been very favorable. All of the programs that our Community Resources Office runs that are youth-based, which is the bulk of them, are like kind of a hand-fit glove to the youth center, and everything will be able to transfer over. Summer programs, after-school programs. The people who are running the after-school programs in the middle school are the staff members who would then transfer to the youth center. And any other programs that are currently run at 935, and there are a few. Like right now, there's Catholic Charities is running tax preparation assistance. And we still have the nurses from Somerset County Health Department run the clinics. All of those things can remain there, And it also gives us an opportunity with 935 to offer additional services that we currently don't have space for once the building is vacated and the employees move into the youth center. So it's kind of a win-win here. We're able to now provide space, if need be, to do things that, whether it's the county services through Richard Hall or through social services. And in my discussion with the director of the Board of Social Services the other day, he is very interested in becoming more active in Franklin Township with program-related materials, both for youth at the youth center, because they administer to all the families. So clearly there's a connection there, as well as being able to offer additional adult services if we had the space available at 935 Hamilton. So it really has an opportunity to be just an all-around win, and both, Diane Leach Thompson as the director and Shireen Davenport, who's the MSW for our social services, are both very positive about the opportunities that we could have doing things this way. So that's kind of where we're headed in the direction of, and I will answer any questions should you have them.
I have actually two questions.
Okay.
So one is just a clarification question. The idea essentially with this is that we transfer the services to the county, like the rest of the county, and there should be no gap.
No, there would be no gap. I mean, so what would happen here is we would provide for the end of March or the end of April, depending on how the transition took place, the last general assistance coming through our people to the clients, and then all of their files would be transferred across the street to the satellite office, and the following month they would be able to go there. Most, if not all of them, are already clients there for other services, because almost every single general assistance recipient receive SNAP benefits as well, and they have to go there for those. I'm also told that if there's also bus vouchers for the Somerset County transportation buses that are given to clients of the Somerset satellite office in the event that they do have to go to Somerville for some reason.
And then question number two is, it sounds great. We're going to fold over those resources and the personnel to the youth center, but can you just clarify, when Diane retires and the youth center opening up, you just...
So what happens in between?
Yes.
So what happens in between is a couple things. So if Diane retires on April 1st, and there's still, even if it's April 1st is the last GA benefit for our clients, or May 1st, there's still a great deal of work that needs to be done related to GA to transfer things over. Files have to be transferred. There's permanent files have to be done, and there's the closeout of our GA accounts that have to be done. So that would take at least a month. That's getting us close to the preparation for the summer program for the kids that is run out of 935 Hamilton Street. That's about, I think the last I told, between 35 and 45 summer campers that are in from the end of June through the end of August. So all of that would fall now on the existing staff, minus Diane, but we'll work through that and see how we have to do that. But the summer camp program will continue. Also, what will continue is this staff working with Safi Callan, the projects manager and recreation staff, to develop all of the business plan and program plans for the youth center once it opens. So there's more than enough work to be done. They'll kind of just jump on the bandwagon with the rest of the people who are doing it now.
Anyone else?
So the costs more or less are a wash.
When you say the costs are a wash.
I'm saying, well,
the costs aren't a wash.
We'll be saving the salary?
So all of the monies associated with community resources will be transferred to the youth center, which means those costs won't have to be incurred by the youth center.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's not a wash, that's a gain.
It's a gain because,
Yeah.
and there's going to be a
Yeah.
second point or question.
Yeah, there's
So
a big gain.
I was listening
Yeah.
closely. I know this came up briefly when we were just talking about the building, I think, in land use, but all these details are new and they sound wonderful. The fact is, we won't be spending any more or less money on the community resources this year, or probably going forward, but we will be we'll be freeing up space at that building on Hamilton that we already own. So if there are any services that we want to add or space that we could utilize, nonprofit, et cetera, we'll have more space. And then we'll consolidate, especially youth-related services at the new youth center, and we'll have enough staff to handle everything. So in a way, it's a big win.
So we'll talk about staffing at the next discussion, which is recreation. So we'll talk about costs associated with the youth center, and specifically when we talk about staffing, and we'll talk about the unknowns, and there are unknowns right now. But this salary that is currently allotted to community resources, once we discontinue that department, all of those salary budgets will then transfer to the youth center, where we anticipated a number of full-time and part-time employees. So this will be certainly a big part of offsetting the new costs that we're about to assume with the youth center. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
So is, let's call it Diane's salary,
Yes.
being transferred to the youth center?
That
position will be filled, maybe not under the same title.
No, there won't be, certainly there won't be the same title, and the organizational chart, we're working on the final organizational chart. My anticipation right now, based on all of the input that I've gotten from staff and where we're trying to be, is that there will be 2 youth center managers, building managers for lack of a better term, because of the overlap of hours and days. It goes beyond 5 days a week. It goes beyond 8 hours a day. There will be the need for 2 people. They'll have pretty much distinct responsibilities. The thought is that we have currently, certainly I don't think it would come as a surprise, that Bruce Medley, who's the FYI program coordinator and really is kind of the person who is running the current programs that are most associated with finding a new home in the youth center, will be one of those people. And then we have on the other side an MSW coming from Community Resources that gives us 2 very different approaches to dealing with the kids in the youth center. One on a social welfare and counseling and all of those types, and then another on recreation and social development and all of those things. So that splitting the difference between the 2 of them gives us an opportunity to provide a lot more services in the way of oversight and program development that we might not have had if we didn't do this with social services.
Well, that very explicitly does not answer my question, because you've answered it in terms of 2 other people moving to the youth center.
Both are already employees. The costs associated with Diane's budget is a dollar figure. Don't associate it with a person. She's being paid. So in this year, there's a quarter of the salary. It was January, February, March are already being paid to her. So that's not a full salary that's left over. And it allows us to, and I said, we're going to talk more about salaries. There are full-time employees. There are part-time employees. We still haven't decided exactly where this is going to go with the youth center. So until it's finalized, I can't tell you other than that's the current structure that we're looking at, and both of them are already employees. The additional monies from Diane's salary would be divided up either under permanent part-time employees, an additional full-time employee, until I have a full adopted organizational chart, which we're working on now because we're working through all of these other issues. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to go towards youth center salaries. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So just a clarification, you used the term municipal welfare. For the listening public, explain that money comes from.
The state of New Jersey. It's called, that's, I mean, I'm not, the terminology is not mine. The terminology is the government's. It's municipal welfare because it's administered by a municipal government. Welfare money comes from the state of New Jersey with funding from the federal government.
I just.
Not our money.
Right.
But it's all our money, right,
It's-
in the end.
It's like the local finance board
Yeah,
is not local.
that's not local.
Right, so I just wanted to be clear.
And that program has been around for a long, long time. A lot of people don't know that we administer that out of Franklin Township.
For a very long time.
935.
For a
And
very long
it's
time.
not going to go away. That's the other point
No.
I want to make, because I know some people have already said, what are you going to do with 935? We're going to maintain that building. We're not selling the building. We're not getting rid of the building.
Okay,
Okay.
moving on.
Moving on. So next is recreation.
So the budget's staying flat, Bob? The operating expense budget is staying flat, it looks like?
On community resources or on recreation?
Community resources.
Yeah, flat, yes. Okay.
We didn't get to that page, so
No. All right, so. My glasses on so I can see. So the one thing is, and I just, it's tiny, tiny print, but in the salary and wage budget for recreation, okay, it has, trying to find it, bear with me. Vacant position, it's the it's the next to the last line. It says vacant position, part-time youth center staff. That's the addition to the recreation salary budget. There's a $50,000 increase over the general increases due to contracts to salaries of existing employees. There's an additional $50,000 in the recreation budget for part-time youth center staff. And let me explain this. So when people work for our recreation department and it is program related, and we have a number of, I mean, literally we have hundreds of people that work for the recreation department over the course of a year in programs, and think of all of the different programs that are run by the recreation department. It could be something as simple as trunk or treat, if somebody worked as a part-time employee on trunk or treat, or somebody worked on the swim program, or somebody worked in the basketball program. All of those program-related employees are paid through the Recreation Trust, which is outside of the municipal budget. It's monies that have been accumulated as a result of fees. And you know, many things are fee-driven programs for the Recreation Department. And fee-driven programs fund program salaries. Many of the salaries in the youth center will be program-related. But there will be some that won't be. For instance, security is not program related. So we have to pay somebody to be at the front booth at the at the front desk of the youth center to check kids in and out, to make sure that things are, there's a safe environment. There's been discussions about safety and security and security guards, and I hate to use that, security staff. This is used to fund that. We're not quite sure where this number is going to be, where this number is going to wind up. After discussion with a number of people that are involved in this whole process, we decided that $50,000 based on 1 quarter, it should be more than sufficient. This number will be adjusted for the 2021 budget. I don't know where it will go until we get into the building and begin to evaluate staff needs on a daily basis. We can assume certain things, but I will tell you right now that I don't know that we'll assume correctly. And there will probably be mistakes made on both sides. In some cases where we have too many, and some places where we have too few, and we'll have to adjust. But I felt that this, in addition to the salary that is remaining after Diane retires and positions aren't filled, should be more than sufficient for this calendar year and then we can certainly do an evaluation of the entire operation after we're in it for a few months to determine where it goes for the 2021 budget. So that's the $50,000 added to the salary budget. There's no additional staff other than that in the recreation department. And then if you flip the page, the recreation OE budget is proposed at $95,392, which is flat from the previous year.
So
Yes.
the monies from Diane's retirement is not reflected in the 50,000?
No, it's not. So it would be, so we're looking at 50,000 in the recreation budget, and whatever the balance is from Diane's budget after we make adjustments to whatever we need to make as far as the permanent staff that we currently already have working for us. So the anticipation is that we're going to need more than 3 full-time employees. Right now we have one from the recreation department, one from community resources, and then a third who's also in community resources that are in a full-time capacity now. The anticipation is that we'll need at least one more full-time employee and maybe 2. That's what we're currently evaluating. We just had the meeting on Friday of the committee that's working on the business plan and the program plans. And I think we're close to coming to some agreement. The biggest problem that we have had here is, and I guess this is in a way a good thing to tell you, is that what we are doing here is not something that we have found anyone else around doing, and that's dedicating an entire facility to kids. Every other recreation facility that we can find or that we can talk to when we talk about staffing and we talk about program-related things are all general recreation facilities that service not only kids but adults as well. That's not what this building will do. And because of that, it's not, we are inventing the wheel here. There isn't anyone to go to and say, so you run a youth center, tell us how you do it. There's no one else doing it. I mean, we're kind of, in a way, blazing new trails here. So a lot of this is going to be learn as we go. We'll be prepared, but we're also prepared that we might have made some misjudgments. We're working as best we can to try to get it right, but the truth is, we don't know what right is until we actually do it. So that's kind of where we're at with this right now. I don't know, did that answer?
Yes.
I know it was long, but this is kind of important. This is a hard one here.
Mayor?
Anyone else for recreation?
Mayor, a question. No, I understand what you're saying, and I think all this has got a lot of wonderful potential. I'm just trying to get an understanding of, and I know you're not sure of these things, I'm just trying to get an understanding of direction. Will any of the workers, positions, either in part or whole, that are at this youth center, or primarily for the youth center, be coming from the recreation trust down the road?
Oh, many. That's what I said.
That's right.
A lot of the things that will be done in this building are program-related things. I mean, so I'll give you an example. So there is workout equipment, like the exercise equipment in a room. I don't want to call it the gym because I'm not talking about the gymnasium, but a gym, okay? So there will be things where kids can go and learn how to work out, and a trainer and all, so the trainer will be there a couple days a week, a few hours a day, whatever it works out to be, so they can go there, they can learn how to use the equipment, they can learn how to, physical fitness and all of those things, and that will be a program-related position because the program will be physical fitness program. And I'm just kind of flying here, but I think you get my point. That would be a rec trust program-related position. And there will be many of them, as many as we can find programs to offer the kids. It's the physical building positions that aren't program related.
Right, so it's finding that balance, seeing what can come,
Yes.
for trying to project how much will be the trust fund, how the trust fund will be funded, and so we're learning as we go, but for good reason.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine, thank you.
I have a suggestion. Can we look at recreation and youth services as one department going
It is
forward?
one department.
It is one.
It is, the youth center falls under the recreation department.
All right, okay.
So, not youth center related, it's summer programs. I know we've got the pool is up and running this year. Are we looking to, do we need additional staff? I think there was a staff.
So I'm going to let Bill Burtis, who's our superintendent, talk about a suggestion that he made that we're going to be pursuing sooner rather than later as it relates to the pool that will allow us to expand the hours significantly over previous years. So, Bill?
Hi, everyone. So what we did this year is we had one of our longtime lifeguards and has been involved with our program for many years, went and got lifeguard instructor certified. So the idea is then we can keep the instruction of our lifeguards in-house. We're going to incentivize the program whereby local youth can get the skills to become a lifeguard, go through the through the program in-house, and we'll cover that cost through the swim trust if they will work for us for the entire summer. So it's a win-win in my opinion. You're going to have more staff, so we can have more people at the pool. We can keep the pool open better, longer hours. Plus, we're teaching job skills that can carry on into the future for these students. So that's the plan right now.
Good. So,
You know.
listen, when he told me this idea, we jumped right on it, and I said, get the ball rolling now so that we have them in training. I mean, obviously, there's a cost associated with training a lifeguard, but in the end, I think that it's a very small amount of money for us to be able to provide a service in a much greater fashion than we have in the past, and we can employ people who live right in the neighborhood, so they're nice and close, so that they can come work whenever we need them to come work.
And as you pointed out, it's skills training for our youth, so it's another opportunity for them. I know that's been a hot topic lately, but yeah, and plus that'll benefit the residents of the area to keep it open. So, no, that's awesome. I remember trying to drive over to Sunny Warpland for 2 weekends to do the training. So, if it's, we're gonna have to use a facility, but just to keep it in the neighborhood, that's a big win for us, so.
And it might even quiet Johnny Tibbs down.
No, we're going to be looking for recommendations to come take the training, so.
Okay,
Okay?
all right,
We're good?
we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Tara and Carl?
Kara, did you leave Bob Puskas and Bob LaCourte unattended there?
Yes.
Wow.
I think they're
A little scary.
So next is open space, and it's way towards, it's in trusts, it's the second to last, behind Hamilton Street, there we go. And it's portrait.
All right.
So, we're all in, everybody got it? Trust all the way towards the back, under trust, and it's nearly the last page. It's the last 2 pages in that tab, behind all the Hamilton Street and Sid paperwork. Okay.
2020 Open Space Trust Fund.
2020 Open Space Trust Fund with the yellow column there, that one and a few yellow rows.
We don't have yellow.
Oh, you don't have color, I'm sorry. We saved money, didn't use color printer for you.
We're just the council, we don't care.
That's all right, because it's making me go cross-eyed and I can't read the numbers. That's why I'm having such a hard time even bringing it up. So the yellow is the one that we want to stay away from. Currently, where it says total S&W, OE, and CIF, that's about 2/3 of the way down. If you follow that all the way across, you'll see that in the 2019 budget, it was at $2,714,888. And it's proposed at $2,989,136, which is an increase of $274,248. And so there is what appears to be the bulk of that increase is in basically the three lines right above it. One is $25,000 for grasslands management projects. That's new, added this year. And then there's an additional $214,000 added to the capital improvement fund. And there's $67,838 added to reserve for future use. So I'm going to let some people explain, and really, you should turn your microphone on because you have a role in this one. The grasslands management project sounds, and that's been discussed at the Open Space Advisory Committee, and that's to the two properties in particular, Negri Napodi and the John Clyde Memorial Grasslands Preserve in Griggstown, and the need to periodically mow the grasses to remove invasive species that are growing.
Well, it's more than that.
And I knew you would add.
Number of lines of trees, rather more than I like.
Feel free to add more if there is, but I think that kind of covers it. All right, so capital improvement fund shows an increase of $214,000. Kathy?
Recommend. The Open Space Trust is mathematically based on what we expect to raise on the taxes. So the green line, about 6 lines from the bottom, shows you what our expected taxes are of $5,305,699. That's a nickel for every $100. So if you remember last time, or as we'll discuss later, the capital requests for open space come to about $3.3 million. So I took the amount of money we were able to use out of the budget before we got to the cap of the $5,305,000 and put it in the capital improvement fund, and the little bit that rounded is in reserve for future use. And then if you go down to the third line from the bottom, you'll see capital ordinance recreation of $1,560,000. That's the rest of the capital requests. So it's basically a mathematical formula in order to account for the capital that's being requested.
And with the Open Space Advisory Committee, with the Open Space Advisory Trust budget, capital, generally speaking, there's some small capital expenditures, but generally speaking, when we talk about capital, we talk about acquisition of land or development rights. So I know all of you know that. That's more for the benefit of the public. And there are some things. So we just did, at our last meeting, adopted expenditure ordinances for a few properties, development rights, and some fee simple acquisitions. We're going to talk at a future council meeting about a possible amendment to that ordinance to fund some of those acquisitions from a different source other than the general improvement fund for capital, for open space. There is still a balance on an outstanding bond from many years ago that we're probably going to charge at least a portion of those capital projects to, that will just require an ordinance amendment, and So when you see it, you'll say, why are we doing that? And you'll remember I said that here tonight, just so that we can use up old funding as opposed to using new funding. That's all. And just a reminder that, because I know I had a discussion with the new chairman of the Open Space Advisory Committee today about some budget issues. There are currently a number of, well, all of our parks maintenance employees' salaries, and salaries alone, no benefits or anything like that, salaries are paid for out of the Open Space Trust. 2 of them full-time, 12 months a year, and 10 of them for 10 months of the year. And that's the entire park maintenance staff that maintain all of our park and open space properties.
Can I ask a question,
Yes.
Kathy? Can you clarify 2020 budget requested for capital ordinance recreation? What's that number?
The 1,560,000. It's the third to last line on the second to right column under 2020.
I'll show it to you.
It seems to say 2,930,000
Yes.
Down here.
here.
It says 2,930,000.
Yes.
It says.
You didn't give him the replacement one.
You got an old
A few
sheet?
things sound wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I should have said that. I apologize. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, all right. That makes
And that's
sense.
why. And I wasn't, so I was getting quizzical looks from a few of you up there, and now I know why. It's in the packets that were given with updated numbers because, like I said, I had conversations with Tara and Kathy and Bob Puskas today.
That's 2 pages in
Yeah,
the back.
and that's my fault. I knew that they were in there. I forgot to tell you.
And it's in color, and we have green and yellow. Okay.
So that's why the numbers didn't match. That's my fault.
And the colors.
Okay. Yeah, it's this one.
So don't stare at the yellow column too long. It'll make your eyes cross. Or maybe that's just me.
Bob, you know I try not to draw attention to this too much. I'm just trying to understand clarification. Line 78, 2 new items. I'm just curious, what's that? Is that to pay for facilities on there, or?
Yeah, we have to pay for the sewer bills.
Okay, so that's it, okay.
Yeah, that's the buildings that we own on open space that have sewer bills.
Okay.
Yep.
Because the 2 lines above, it says water and sewer also, that's why I was.
We separate the sewer bills that go to the Franklin Township Sewer Authority from the water we buy from our water utility.
No, that's, right, but it's just because it says.
It says water and sewer, but
Water
it's
and
not a
sewer, and
duplicate.
then
It says water.
Okay, that's fine. I just, okay.
How would you budget, well, what I'm thinking of is whatever sanitary facilities we have on Catalpa, if we ever get there. Because that won't be sewer, but it's the same sort of.
It'll be the same as like we buy, so that we buy heating oil for one house and we pay a public service bill for another. It's, it would be, we'd have to put in a line for the septic service that, that pumps out a tank. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions on open space?
Any further progress on Catalpa?
So today, I received the quote for the archaeological survey, and they've assured me that upon awarding of the contract, which will be through the consulting engineer, they will have the work done in 6 weeks, and the cost is about $16,000. So what I would say to all of you who have discussions with state legislators on a regular basis, this is why government costs so much money. This is to satisfy the Department of Environmental Protection, an additional $16,000. Well, no, it sort of is because of the turtles, because of all of the issues related with the redesign of the park and the finding of the wood turtle 1/4 mile upstream. The check block on the form for DEP got checked for the mandatory archaeological survey.
I don't see how they could find a wood turtle a quarter mile upstream, because I don't think that stream starts a quarter of a mile up.
Do we have any other budget issues?
There we go. So, no, we're good. Thank you all. Carl, you can stay. Okay.
Chop that turtle out.
Yeah, go manage Mr. LaCourte, please. Tell them I miss them.
Okay, so police, 911, animal control, OEM, and then police capital. Okay, so first budget we'll talk about is the police other expenses budget, and I'm getting there. Bear with me. Okay. Department name police, I believe, and that's one page. I'll put my glasses on so I could see. So this budget has different components to it that I just kind of I want to talk. So the overall budget, so if you look at the line that says total other expenses, which is not the bottom line, but the total other expenses, the total other expenses as proposed in this budget are $518,420, which is an increase of $27,890 over the previous year at $495.30. We'll see that line. Okay. The next line says less vehicle. Okay. It's kind of backwards. I know that you usually show debits in parentheses, and this is a debit, but what this is basically doing is backing out line 051, which is different in 2020 than it was in 2018, and I think that's why we're just looking to draw attention to it. Cars. So cars in the state of New Jersey are not capital because they don't have a useful life of more than 5 years. SUVs, trucks, all of those other things that we, those types of motor vehicles that we purchase are capital purchases, and we talk about them in the capital budget. But the state of New Jersey does not allow for a car to be determined, they don't determine a car to be a capital item because it has a useful life of less than 5 years. So we have to budget cars in our regular OE budget. This year's budget calls for 2 cars. And I don't know if you have it. Do you have handwritten note on your sheet? No. Okay. That's for my benefit. So the 2 cars being proposed in the police budget this year are 2 Fusions and a Malibu. These are unmarked cars. And we'll talk a little bit about the fleet. We can talk about it now. We'll probably be better off talking about it while we talk about the capital budget where there are additional vehicles involved. And we can talk about an overview of all the vehicles. But I want you to understand that the budget has gone up $27,000, but the amount budgeted for cars has gone down 22. So there's actually a net increase on the rest of the budget of about $49,000, about $50,000, a little less than 50. So having said that, there's a $50,000 increase. I'm going to have Lieutenant Rizzo and, if need be, Sergeant Farrar explain to you the increases and decreases in their budget. So I think that's on, Phil.
Yes, it is. So again, just going each line by line, 022 has remained flat, which is postage and other expresses. If you go to line 023, that has a proposed increase of $1,500. The reason for that is that printing has gone up. We have emergency no parking signs that we need to print and other printings. So that's just the cost of printing and the printing contracts. If we go to line 026, maintenance of other equipment, there was an increase there of $1,000, and that actually is in item 3.
They don't have this.
Oh, they don't have that. I'm sorry. So
Just the cover sheets.
So in that line, 026, other maintenance, we are actually adding another security access door to our ID room, the key card system, so that will be a key carded door. Professional consulting fees are staying the same. Document destruction in line 029 is going up $500. That's just the cost of destruction. Chemicals and gases in 031 is remaining flat, remaining the same. Chemical and gases are our fire extinguishers as well as oxygen.
I don't want people thinking our police department.
Fully understood. Yes, that's our fire extinguishers that we carry in our cars as well as the oxygen cylinders.
And helium for the balloons.
For line 033, which is publications, obviously with the increase of when we have new officers, we buy them their initial set of manuals, so we had an increase there with new officers that we would have to purchase manuals. Our conferences and meetings has remained flat. The education and training. So in education and training, we see that our EMT and CPR has gone up about $300 because we have more EMTs within the department. We need to make sure that their certifications remain updated. Training costs money, so that has gone up. And then the other thing we have done, again, because we do have a younger group of officers that are coming in, we want to make sure that they are properly trained, so we've requested an additional $3,000 in our training budget to make sure that for in-service classes, such as arrest, search, and seizure classes and other classes that we would send officers to for updating that.
Which line are you on?
042, I'm sorry. Education and training.
We have it.
He's telling you about, so he's going down the line items, and then there's a decrease in one that's big. He's telling you about what the increases were that then will be slightly offset the decrease of $10,000 because there's not $10,000 currently being budgeted for sending 4 police officers to the police academy like there was in the previous year's budget, because at this point in the year we don't know what we're going to do as far as hiring of police officers and whether or not there will be a requirement for training at the police academy. So we've removed it from the budget, and it can be charged to my contingency in my budget, which I'll talk to you later, in the event that that's the direction that the police department goes for new hires.
The line 043, clothing and uniforms, that has remained flat, as well as 044 for professional and association fees. So 051, this is the unmarked vehicles that Mr. Vornlocker spoke of earlier. These are unmarked administrative vehicles, detective bureau vehicles. These would be replacing fleet vehicles that we have. Currently, our unmarked fleet has 12 vehicles that are over 10 years old, one of them being upwards of 17 years old, and many of them have well over 100,000 miles. So these 3 vehicles would be meant to replace some of those vehicles.
Again, we'll talk a little bit about vehicles when we get to capital.
But if they're old and battered, they're all the more plausible as unmarked vehicles.
If we were using them as undercover vehicles, you are 100% correct, but these are for detectives going to and from calls and doing their investigations. We then go to line 056. There's been some increases here. The first line that we're requesting an increase for is for safety coveralls.
Just do the overall.
Sorry. So there's an increase of $7,000 there. The increase for that would be for bulletproof vests for new officers and replacement of expired bulletproof vests for that have expired, as well as first aid supplies, including Narcan and other types of things that we provide. The cost of those have just gone up. That's just a flat cost.
So I want to just stop here for a second. If you look at the 2019 expenditure in that line, all right, you'll see that it's got a big number compared to what's currently budgeted. So one of the things that that has changed since the last time we were here is that the police department now has instituted a mandatory wear policy for ballistic vests for our police officers, meaning they are required, that is a required item that they wear every day when they go out into the field. And so that number that you see there that looks big, and it is big, is only a portion of the overall cost to replace expired ballistic vests and purchase new vests for those who didn't have them so that the police department could institute a mandatory wear policy. The rest of the money came from forfeiture funds, both municipal and federal forfeiture funds. And that was the balance of the original outlay to equip all of the officers with who didn't have who had expired vests, now got new vests. Going forward, one of the advantages to having a mandatory wear policy is that our police department qualifies for the federal vest grant annually. And I just got notification, I guess about a week or two ago, that we got our $9,800, give it 89 or 98. I have 89, there you go, 89. I wish it was 98, transpose those numbers. But an $8,900 grant from the government to put into the vest fund. There's a trust fund that we have for that to pay for the vests once we need them. So we didn't need to bump it up again. Vests generally are 5-year. Are they still 5?
Vests are good for 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
And that roughly $8,000 will buy about 8 vests. I mean,
they're about $1,000 a piece.
How does a vest expire?
Because the Kevlar is determined to break down over a period of time. Kevlar breaks down from ultraviolet rays, and for officer safety, they have instituted the manufacturers will not warranty them after 5 years, so therefore you don't want our police officers wearing them because there's a certain amount of trust that you need to have in the device to actually work. And while there's no proof that they will not work after 5 years, that's what the federal government recommends for replacement of ballistic vests.
Sounds like a plan by the manufacturer to ensure that you got to keep buying more.
Been like that for a very, very, very long time.
How does the warranty on a bulletproof vest read?
I actually just got the card.
That it's rated to stop at a certain distance, certain caliber bullets.
And how will they pay you if it doesn't?
Well, it'll be a nice lawsuit, and it's what put one of the companies out of business. So make sure that they manufacture them to the proper specifications, or else they will fail, and then the company fails, which is what happened probably about 15 years ago when we did, with the last mass purchase of ballistic vests that we made back in about 2008, 2009. So that's vests and that's equipment. So there's a discussion about that.
So furnishings remained flat in 057?
Nope, up 2,000.
I'm sorry. That went up. We bumped that up? Oh, yes. The reason we bumped that up, I apologize. We do have several positions in our agency, the police front desk, as well as our dispatch center, that are staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. These normal chairs that we see here would not suffice for a 24-hour chair. 24-hour chairs are not inexpensive. So we wanted to get some more chairs for our dispatch center as well as for the front desk.
24-hour big man chairs.
So that's it. So you remember it. I
remembered.
So they are actually not just friendly in a friendly way, but they are actually referred to as big man chairs. And they are big man chairs not just because big men sit in them, which big men do, but a police officer with a gun belt, with a firearm and radio and all of the other related things on their belt, create a wide person in a chair, and so those chairs are built to sustain long periods of time with large weights in them, and it's not just about.
And they last less than 5 years?
No. Mr. Farrar, would you like to explain how long you've been keeping the current ones alive?
Okay, why are not the capital budget?
Capital budget is basically $5,000.
You don't buy capital for anything less than $5,000
Another rule.
a piece.
Still learning.
So I have to give Brian some credit. Brian has been Mr. Fix-It for many, many years, and whenever pistons and swivels and covers and arms and seat covers and whatever, Brian will fix them and put them together. So he's been piecemealing these.
My understanding is the ones that we have, the parts are no longer available.
Yes, and they've discontinued.
The company was bought out, and we'll still get parts for another year or so, but they're 10+ years old chairs. So I think we got our money's worth.
Well, we'll call them next time big person chairs.
Big person
not
chairs.
Big man chairs.
That's right. I didn't make up the name though.
It's a good memory there. I have to give you credit on that.
All right. Next on other equipment and supplies.
Other equipment and supplies. You'll see an $11,500 increase there. Much of that has to do with the fact that we do now have a full-time ID officer in Officer Wilson. So, Detective Wilson, I apologize. And with that being said, he's going to be processing crime scenes and so on. And he just needs supplies to do so, such as fingerprint dust and other supplies that,
A whole lot more than fingerprint.
A whole lot more than that, but what's that? Plaster cast. Yeah, plaster cast and all of that. Additionally, there was an increase in our target and gun cleaning supplies. That was just an increase in the price of targets. Various other bureau supplies, $2,000. That is going to be again just bureau supplies. Part of that has to do with the fact that we now have a policy that has come down when it comes to evidence retention. If we take digital photos, that's the next one. All right. What was just some of the. Okay. Oh yes. So we actually I apologize. The various bureau supplies is some of our detectives have actually gone through and are currently arson investigators. As part of the arson investigations, they need to have additional supplies. And lastly, there's a $5,000 increase with evidence storage bins. What we have done is, as we have audited our evidence room and moved forward with our evidence room, we have, they're like a plastic bin. The way they used to be was cardboard boxes that were just on our evidence shelves. Obviously, over time, they break down and so on. So we've gone to more of a corrugated type of a plastic that is obviously going to be more long-lasting and is just better for us to use. Toners and drums, you'll see that increased, as well as SD cards. So that's under line 059. So with this situation, this is what I was talking about earlier. Toners and drums have gone up as far as printing supplies for our printers, but the other thing that I was speaking of earlier was a new policy has been instituted that whenever we take digital photography at a crime scene or other type of crash investigation. All of that information goes onto an SD card. That SD card used to get put into a computer, those photos transferred to a disk, and that disk put into evidence. Well, under the new guidelines that we have, we can no longer transfer those to a disk. So we have to take that SD card and put that original SD card into evidence. So basically, every one of our SD cards are now one-time use.
And that's a directive from the Attorney General.
So again, we've actually, you know, Brian doing some shopping around has found some various sizes, but has gotten a good price on the cards, but unfortunately they are one-time use.
Sounds like something for the council on unfunded mandates.
I think what so while generally I would agree with that, in this particular case, I think that the Attorney General is anticipating, and it may have happened, and I don't research case law anymore, but what probably prompted this is that the courts probably found that the photos that were transferred from a camera to a disk, and then a disk burned, to a computer, and then a disk burned, had the possibility of a photo being altered without proof. A photo on the card is going right from the camera to the card. And so I'm thinking that there probably was a lost case that prompted the Attorney General to issue the new directive. That's usually what happens, is the courts kind of set the precedent for something like this.
The metadata can become corrupted.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, and I don't know that for a fact, but I know over the past,
All right,
it's
it's
happened.
a mandate. We're not going to change it here. Go on.
The next thing we look at is 076, and that is our phone charges. We've just had some increases with cell phones. We've our duty detectives, as well as the detective sergeants who did not have cell phones, we have provided them with cell phones. Obviously, they're on call, so giving them phones and so that they have access.
So how many? I mean, that's a big jump.
It wasn't just the phones. It was the for our ALPR system. It runs on a cellular network.
ALPR.
The plate readers
Okay.
that we will be installing. It runs
And
on.
this is not just
cellular.
phones.
So
The 16,000 is just phones.
This will, since we cut back on the plate readers, this will be going down a little bit. I don't have the exact number yet, but it will be coming down probably by about $2,000 overall, because we had budgeted for more of the.
This is cell phones, computers, and this is, remember, it's not only the police department. There's other departments in the town that have this. It's the security cameras and that are cellular. There's many things that are charged to this line that are outside of the typical cell phone.
We manage the cell phones for the entire township, so all the township cell phones come out of this bill here, as well as the devices. Plus, one place that it did increase was we are adding 2 iPads to our detective bureau, so we had 2 additional air cards in that area. But the biggest increase was for the plate readers, the cellular service for the plate readers.
Okay.
There were no changes in the next 2 lines, being 077, as well as 093. The last line that we would have to look at is 138, which is software licensing. The increases there have to just do with the service contracts that we have with CAD, as well as some of the other software that we use. That's just the cost of licensing. Those contracts have gone up. Oh, and yeah, the biggest increase there is the software for that plate reader system that we were talking about, which it represents $4,500 for $5,000.
52.50.
Sorry, 52.
More than just about half of the increase.
And that's the police OE.
So that's the police OE. Before we move on to 911, are there any other questions? And we'll certainly have, if you have something, we can jump back. But are there anything else right now? Okay.
I just have one question.
Sure.
On the software licensing, the IT department play any role in sourcing that, or is
There's nothing to source. Most of it is proprietary. The bulk of that is our records management and CAD system, which is not computer-aided design, but computer-aided dispatch. So it is the backbone of the police department. It's where they write all their reports. So at this point, that bulk of that budget is in the maintenance of that one particular software suite. It's what drives the police department. Okay, next tab, 911. Where is the emergency? Police dispatch. Police dispatch is proposed at $215,050, and that's a decrease of $1,450. The bulk of this line is in the very first line, which is maintenance repair of other equipment. It is the maintenance contract for the trunked radio system. This is a line in a budget that, while it's in the police-related budget, it's the radio system that is utilized by the entire township, Public Works, as well as fire and first aid. It's our entire township-wide radio system. So, and we're going to talk about that in capital too, because there's a major cost associated with this radio system that we'll discuss in the capital budget. But that is the 911 budget. And I don't know that we need to go through the 5 lines here. Are there any questions about it? Most of the other lines are relatively small.
Everything stayed flat with the exception of one software license that went down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next tab is emergency management. Emergency management is proposed at $5,250, flat from previous year. The bulk of this budget is in line 063, emergency food and supplies. It's budgeted at $3,000. You see it went unexpended last year. The reason why it goes unexpended is if we don't have any emergencies, we don't need to go to the grocery store and buy the food prior to the emergency. This is to buy food if we have some major catastrophe, whether it be a hurricane or a flood. And generally speaking, for most of these emergencies, we can pre-plan and go out and purchase the food just prior to the emergency taking place. But in the event that it's an isolated emergency in Franklin Township, we can still also do that, and we don't have to worry about grocery stores being closed then, because it's not a widespread disaster, it's a localized disaster. So that's why it's there, and it's hopefully not used again this year, and that would be my hope here.
Don't we also have a certain supply of?
There are things that are non-perishable that you can use. But most of what we would be purchasing with this is perishable goods.
And most of those perishable goods would probably be those to assist the EOC staff and so on.
Yep. Okay. All right. Next tab is animal control. Animal control is proposed at $42,340, which is an increase of $1,700 over last year's budget of $40,640. Put my glasses on so I can see. There's some minor adjustments, increases to some lines where I think it's anticipated that when these lines close out, that there'll be a need. I sound like a broken record, and I know all of you are probably tired of me reminding everyone that this really is not the operating expenses of our animal shelter by any stretch. This is not the operating costs. Really, the bulk of the operating costs associated, put aside salaries for a second, the bulk of the other expenses for our shelter are shouldered by 2 nonprofit organizations and donations from the public or a mayor for his fees from weddings. My guess is that you could easily quadruple that number of 42,000 and probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of what it costs to run an animal shelter for a year. So I think that we are blessed by the fact that we have two nonprofit organizations that dedicate all of their resources to our shelter, which is pretty neat in and of itself. They don't share. They give it all to us, including volunteer services. So, okay. All right, so now we get into the good stuff, right? The good stuff is capital. Last tab in your book. And I'm told that police is intermingled with the rest of the capital, so I will try to navigate for you. Capital, it is not technology capital. It is not roadway capital. I want to make sure there's nothing interspersed here. I think we talked about that already, right? So municipal, yeah, the roof. So I don't know that. So we already discussed that.
Get past DPW, there was an entry for senior center for carpet in the billiards room. We were able to take that off the capital budget because we found money from a prior capital budget that we can fund it. It's only $7,500, but we found money. Yes, we do try.
So, requesting Department of Police capital request sheet. I'm actually just going to let Phil and Brian go through this list, and we can talk about fleet. We can actually talk about fleet right with the first line. So the first line is 8 marked patrol SUVs.
So we're requesting 8 marked patrol SUVs. Those would basically be rotating into our fleet. We do have cars, obviously, that get passed down along the lines where we would pass them down to school resource officers or as outside job vehicles. But, you know, these cars do have a useful life of well over 5 years, and we've, over the past many years, maintained these vehicles for well into the 8 to 10 year range. And, you know, we just continue to try and keep that up. What we're looking to do is get into a normal replacement plan ultimately so that, you know, we can understand that our vehicles are used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So a vehicle that we have that we use for 5 or 6 years is used compounded more than just a normal vehicle that you would keep for 5 years.
So well, I asked Public Works to do an analysis of the fleet for me. That's one of the reasons why Carl is here for the police department portion of this, not just the open space. Some changes in the police fleet that have occurred within the last now 2 years that have caused us to look at vehicles in a different way. What the biggest significant change has been the addition of Class 3 special police officers in all of our schools. And there is a requirement for them to drive back and forth from police headquarters because of the state law and how they carry firearms. So that it is a requirement that we can't say just take your own car. We can't say just go there every day. Don't come here. We have to follow those directives as to how they function. So there are.
I was going to say, to expound upon that, we have basically 13 additional cars that are put out every day during the school year. 9 Class 3 officers, as well as 3 school resource officers and a great officer. Great being gang resistance education and training. I mean, we think she's a great officer anyway, but that's just the title, great. So there's an additional 13 cars that are out, already allocated right off the bat every day during the school year.
So you have 13 cars, but you only have 10 schools.
Well, we have 10 schools. Well, actually, there's 11 because one of the schools is Rutgers Prep that pays for a Class 3 special.
Okay.
And some of the schools have more than one officer.
Right, but does explain why?
Again, well, so the schools that have two have full-duty officers who might at any time have to leave with a vehicle and can't leave the other officer stranded there without one, and this is not something, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and the truth is, going back to just those vehicles that those officers are utilizing, because we recognize that they're primarily just using them as a form of transportation, especially when we talk about the Class 3 specials who have no other law enforcement authority other than when they get to the school. All right, so they can't stop cars, they can't respond to calls. So those vehicles need to be just in the definition I would call reliable transportation. They are no longer pursuit vehicles, they are no longer emergency response vehicles, which means the much older vehicles in the fleet can stay for that purpose. But what it's meant is that we've had to keep them longer than we used to.
So are we using police vehicles because legislatively that's what's required, or because it's a good idea? I mean, what I'm asking is, should I talk to my state legislators and change the rule, or is it a good rule?
Well, I would believe it's a good rule, simply put, because they're on the clock from the time they leave our headquarters to the time they get back to our headquarters. Having them in our vehicles is required, but it's also good practice to have what is obviously a police car in front of the school. There is some deterrent fact to that.
I was going to say, seeing the one at certain school, I won't mention a daily route of mine, you notice it. It stands out, and I get the sense it was parked in a way, so it does stand out. And even noticed one time when a vehicle that did say police but was completely different than the patrol car did not stand there. So it's used for a variety of reasons is what I'm hearing, and it increases the overall presence of it. But we are using, if I'm also understanding correctly, we're using the oldest cars we have, which are safe, but would normally have been used, not been taken out of service or used minimally. So they're doing their job there the way that you want them to.
They are. And so the issue, though, is that because they are on their last leg, the need to replace now, well, we had this big fleet and we made it bigger by not getting rid of some cars, and now we have to replace some cars, and this is just, it's increased the size of the fleet, which means we've tried to stretch cars a little bit further. And when you stretch cars a little bit further, the mechanical issues related to them, the wear and tear issues related to them tend to become more frequent, and and that's why I think that we're going to need to look at this in a different way. And I appreciate what the gentleman said here. I appreciate the mayor asking the question. The identity of a vehicle doesn't necessarily come from the shape, right? It comes from the markings on the vehicle and all of those other things. We're going to begin to explore the option, if we have an opportunity to bring in much lower cost vehicles that will last a considerable amount of time as a one-time expense, rather than continuing to try to keep very old vehicles alive at the expense of the costs for newer cars, right? So rather than buy a 40,000 or 300 by 8, right? So $35,000 vehicle, buy a $20,000 vehicle that it gets assigned to the school fleet, and it lasts 10 years, 15 years, because it's only going 10 miles a day, 12 miles a day, depending on what school. Those things are things that we're going to begin to explore, unfortunately, for next year's budget, and because this is all kind of, we're dealing with it right now. It's still kind of growing pains.
So,
and I just would be remiss if I didn't, one point that the mayor did make. We did, when this program was first instituted, look into the possibility of officers carpooling, sharing cars, and it just with the start times of the different schools and the locations of the schools, it just wasn't feasible. But we did look into that and try to make it work.
So pivoting a second away from the school vehicles, when we're talking about the 8 marked patrols.
Yes.
You want to start cycling those out. Would this be the first phase of the proposed, or have?
This is an annual thing. We've been doing this
okay.
for the last 25 years that I know of. I mean, it's cars are always this discussion. The police department makes its living in a vehicle, and they go around, and the fleet itself, other than the fact that we have now increased the size of the fleet by 10 or 12 because of the Class 3 specials, the fleet itself has not increased in size in a number of years. Which just goes to show you that the replacements, the 8 or 10 or 6 or whatever it's been year after year after year, just generally go to replace vehicles that are being removed.
8 need to be removed.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them are already gone. These are replacements for vehicles that have already been removed from the fleet, to be perfectly honest with you.
Ideally, 1 in, 1 out. Yes.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need them. We don't need more. We just need to replace the ones that are no longer with us.
Okay.
Okay.
The next line you'll see is outfitting emergency vehicles, and I know that Mr. Vornlocker has discussed this every year that I've been doing this. Basically, what that is your emergency lights, your sirens, the cage, the installation of all of that. Basically, when those lights get installed into a vehicle, that goes to a facility, and the whole thing gets stripped out. We fully understand that number is almost equivalent to the cost of the car, but that's what it costs. I don't know how else to put it.
Police cars cost a lot of money.
The next 2 items are portable and mobile radios. These are the final phases of a multi-phase purchase of the radios.
Why don't you come back to that? I'm going to jump a little on it. Let's go. Let's just go to number 8 first, which is the radio system upgrade, and let the lieutenant explain to you and the sergeant what that is, because it relates to the other radio purchases that we've been making over the last couple of years.
I'm actually going to defer to Brian on this because he is the radio expert.
Our current radio system, the major part of the infrastructure, is 17 years old. It was put in 2003. Most of the equipment has already, or a portion of the equipment has already seen end of life, some of it going back to 2016. At the end of the year, the bulk of the equipment will be end of life and no longer supported by Motorola. And also in conjunction, Somerset County is also upgrading their system. We're attached with their core. The Corps runs the system by initially going in with county back in 2003. At that time, we saved over $1 million by sharing the Corps with Somerset County. They will be upgrading their Corps and their equipment also. So we need to stay, besides some of it becoming outdated, we need to stay in compliance with Somerset County so everything works together, which is where the mobiles and radios come into play also. Those are going also back to 2003. So the average life projected by Motorola for a portable radio is 10 years. We have gotten 17 years out of our portable radios. So I think we've done quite well with that. That is the final phase that gives the portables to all our Special 3s and the rest of our officers. The mobile radios, that completes the end of the mobile radios. Our current portables and mobiles are not compatible once we upgrade the system. So if we upgraded the system without buying these portables and mobiles, they just wouldn't work.
Now, let me just interject there. This is the final phase. Those radios that were purchased in previous phases on the mobile and portable upgrade will work with the new system. Our old radios won't work with the new system once it's upgraded.
Just for clarity, so this is separate from the trunked radio system.
Oh, this is the trunk radio.
This is the
That's
trunk
what it
radio
is.
system, correct.
This is it.
I remember some major investments after post 2003.
No, you built towers, you built transmitter stations. The only thing that's been done to this system since the original $10 million, I'm explaining, the only thing that's been done, I can tell you exactly what's been done. Since the $10 million original radio system was built, towers were built at Little Rocky Hill, the Trap Rock Tower, Elizabeth Avenue Tower, and the Public Works Garage Tower. At Berry Street. Those towers were built. All of those transmit and receive stations went up online. There's been, since then, the dispatch center hardware has been replaced, I think, 2 years ago as a capital project as part of this upgrade because of end of life. Other than that, there's been nothing else done to the radio system. This is the back end, and this is all of the back end of the radio in the radio shelters behind police headquarters and at all of the transmit receive sites.
Well, when I said investment or upgrades, I'm saying we've been working on a system. I remember actually you were working on part of it that was the antenna related.
I did.
So I'm just saying, yeah, I know. I think we worked together. I'm just saying, I didn't mean that was a bad thing. I'm saying that we have been keeping up with. There's a whole infrastructure. It's not just about the radio, and there's a lot.
I'd love it if it was just about the radio. That'd be
I
the
know,
simplest
because
thing of all.
it's millions of dollars less. But
Yeah.
anyway, then the most important part of
The problem here is that
communications.
without doing this upgrade, and because of the fact that our radio system is tied to Somerset County, on that day that their upgrade went into effect, we would no longer have radios. They would effectively become bricks.
And basically, that would be all police, fire, EMS, DPW, and Board of Ed radios. And Sewage Authority.
Oh, well, then we have to.
Well, if it's the sewage authority, we better get it done now. Right, Councilman Galtieri? It should have been done yesterday.
So the actual price on that you were talking about, then what's in our?
So the cost we have right there is 1.97. That actually has come down because
The listening audience doesn't.
Okay, $1,970,000 is what the cost of the entire upgrade is. Sergeant Farrar has gone through that bill with a fine-tooth comb and brought that down from a grand total of 2.4 million. So that's the number right now that we have. We are confident we're going to be able to get that a little lower. How much lower, I'm not sure.
That's the current.
So these are all state contract pricing. However, it's just a matter of coordinating the effort between the the township and Motorola, as well as Somerset County, to determine how we can best do this under the state contract to make it as cost effective as possible. It's kind of like building a youth center. It's a work in progress, and we won't know until the end where we exactly get to, but we're going to continue working on it until the system is built out. And so so now we've done 3 and 4 in conjunction with 8 on the radio system because they all tie together.
So if we jump to number 5, the mobile vision, that is basically rotating new mobile visions into our police cars, the mobile video recorders. Many of the older systems are no longer compatible with the new system, so this would just be putting new mobile vision computers, new mobile vision in our cars, as well as the back-end server.
And is this a phased project, or is this a one-time project?
Certain parts of this is a one-time project for now. The back-end servers every year have to be replaced on a 5-year cycle. They're considered evidence grade. So when we make a video with the police car, it comes down to headquarters. It's automatically downloaded to a secure server. And once it's on that secure server, it's considered evidence. We no longer need to burn a DVD and physically put that into evidence. The server is secure enough, and we're required to replace that every 5 years on the back end. So that is just a once every 5-year expenditure. We are also replacing 10 of the in-car videos. The cameras, the ones we have are obsolete, no longer supported anymore. We bought them in 2008. So they're no longer supported. We will get high-definition cameras, so it will be a better quality video in those cars, and that portion of it will be a multi-phase portion.
How many cars do we have outfitted?
We have 56 cars outfitted with mobile vision. So we were going to do 10 this year, and we were planning on doing 20 next year, and then, 20 the year after, basically.
But that wouldn't be, so that's, this 110 also includes the back-end server, so you can take that and what's a mobile unit cost these days?
I believe it's about $4,500 installed.
Okay.
I believe is the price.
If you replace the server, what happens to the evidence that's on it? I mean, suppose somebody appeals a case and the court wants to see the evidence on the old server, but you've gone to a new server.
They move all the video onto the new server.
They do, okay.
They do.
And eventually it gets full?
There's a certain amount of video that gets eliminated every year, or actually every day. If it's not evidence or tagged for a case, it's on a rollover basis. So as it's writing some video, it's erasing.
If it's not tagged for saving, so the police officers have to tag the video as evidence to save. If they don't do that, the records retention program is automatically applied to the video, and it overwrites old video that hasn't been saved as evidence. So it always has some space available to it.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6, this is just a regular rotation of our MPCs. We have 39 MPCs, and they have a 4-year lifespan, so. Oh, sorry, mobile personal computers. I apologize.
They have to talk in letters all the time.
I apologize. Those are ruggedized Panasonic Toughbooks that are in the vehicles that we type all the reports on, and we get the incoming calls from our computer-aided dispatch on there.
No, we can talk about 7. Let's talk about 7. Lucky number 7. They put it at number 7. Lucky number 7.
So we're going to talk about lucky number 7, which is the mobile command post. The mobile command post, as you all know, that we currently have was 1980. I thought it was 81. Regardless, it's older than many of the police officers we have within our agency. And we are looking to upgrade our command post to a new command post, not only for emergency situations, but also for community events such as Franklin Day, community events such as the carnivals. The other major thing that we would be utilizing this for is neighborhood restabilization. After an event, we would be able to roll this command post out to specific areas to meet with the public and address their specific concerns and needs. And it's a place to have officers come and meet with the person, the residents. And it's got a lot of community benefits beyond that of just the emergency components. It would be a great situation, for Hamilton Street trunk or treats and things like that, where the kids come in and hand them their candy and move on out. But above and beyond that, like I said, that it's not just a community situation. The other benefit to this command post is it would be a backup 911 system. Some of you may remember, what was it now, 8 years ago? So, October of 2012, our tower right behind police headquarters got struck by lightning.
I think it's Sandy's 12. It was
Sandy was
2010. Okay, so 2010 we had a lightning strike.
Yep.
We lost a good portion of our 911 system for we were down for several days, almost a week, I believe. The benefit to this command post would be that we would be able to run a redundant backup 911 system and 911 center from this. We would be able to do 100% of our dispatch operations from this mobile command post.
Just want to clarify, we wouldn't be taking 911 calls when he means to just be able to have radio communications with the 911 center. So I just didn't want anybody to be confused. We wouldn't be actually taking 911 calls there. If we fail here, our 911 calls go to Somerset County, but we'd be able to contact Somerset County via that command post and get the information that way. I just wanted to.
Would it be able to do a reverse 911 emergency if your 911,
Well, if
regular
our
911 was
So
out?
reverse 911 is done by computer, so I can do that from my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need that for that.
The other thing, as Mr. Vornlocker said, October of 2012, Hurricane Sandy. In the event that we were to, and luckily we didn't, but in the event that our Emergency Operations Center, I was going to say EOC, but you would have yelled at me for using an acronym.
You're right,
Emergency Operations Center were to go down, we could use this as a mobile emergency command center, emergency operations center. This can be used for a number of different things. Major crashes, major crime scenes. This would give our officers a place to stage and come up with plans if you had such thing as a missing person. We've had command posts where we've had walkaways that we've had to stage command posts in rooms. This would actually give us the ability to roll a command post to whatever type of an incident we would need, whether it be a major traffic crash, a major crime scene, or whatever it is.
Could you give us the visual that you gave financial oversight, where you talked about you had to tow?
Yes, there was.
That's pretty good.
That was a very vivid visual.
So the visual with that is our 1980. Is it 81 or 82? 80. So
That's
1980.
80. Good Lord. 80.
It does qualify for QQ plates. We'd have to pay extra for that. But when it comes to some of the community events that we've had to go to, we actually have to go a day early, and we've had the vehicle towed to the event and left it there, and it operates off of a generator, and we leave it there a day or two and kind of quietly go in with a tow truck and bring it back.
I don't know if any of you, if any of you had the story of the bus. So in if it's 1980, then it was in 1990 or 91, the bus was donated to us by the Bridgewater Police Department, who had obtained it and then chose not to use it for the same purpose. They gave it to us, and it was fitted out by two police officers, Ken Otrimsky and Jim Burke, who did it on their spare time. Both of them had carpentry skills, and they were able to fit out the bus back then with the equipment that was in it, desks and some benches and an air conditioner sticking out the back. And the reason why that time frame is back then, and I hear now that it's changed to less time, but school buses were required to be removed from regular school fleets after 10 years. And so it had reached its useful life, and it was no longer of use to the school board and, I guess, Bridgewater. But Bridgewater Township Police gave it to us, and we've had it ever since. We are probably one of the larger agencies in the state of New Jersey not to have a legitimate vehicle for all of the purposes that I'm not going to repeat that Lieutenant Rizzo brought up. This dollar figure of $400,000 is for something that has been spec'd out by the police department and is a legitimate number to provide a useful vehicle that, in my opinion, is not overblown. You can spend well over $1 million on large scale. They're on a Class A bus chassis. This is a truck chassis, so it's smaller. It's definitely not. So the county has one on a bus chassis that is able to provide emergency services for the county for a wide variety of purposes. But it's beyond the scope of this. However, I think that I've discussed this with the police department over the number of years since I became manager about the need to replace that vehicle, and it seems to have always taken a backseat. And I don't know what will happen this year. We have not crunched all the numbers on this budget, and the $1.9 million radio project was something that was unanticipated immediately. We knew it was going to be coming down the road, but Motorola sprung this on us, so I say that because I know that it's a big number.
So behind the scenes, I've been calling for this bus for 3 years on this budget because I've been calling for this.
Pull it close.
But-
You're going in and out.
I'm sorry. I've been calling for this bus for 3 years, and it's on the budget because I've been calling for this bus. But how long have the council known about the replacement of the radio system? When did you first?
I believe it was November.
Yeah, we just found out about it as we were preparing the capital budget.
So that was new information. So that's $2 million added. The justification for this, for the bus is righteous. We just have to balance needs versus resources.
So we're going to crunch a lot of numbers.
Right.
And
Right.
we're in the process of doing that now. The mayor and I have had a chance to have a brief conversation this evening before the meeting about where our appropriations stand. But we're not done yet. This is a budget presentation on what what are the budget requests. I'm not done, and I haven't given you a budget yet, and I don't know whether this will be in the budget that I give you or not, but I wanted you all to hear this. Some other items in all of these budgets have been removed already. And I think that I want people to understand that this is not just the departments coming in front of council with a wish list. This budget's been worked on since October. And it's a result of meetings and discussions and like the mayor said, determining not just wants and needs, but also resources available to pay for those wants and needs. So we're working on it, and you will get a budget, and I'm hoping that you'll get a budget by the beginning of March, because that's when we need to do this. But there'll be a few more meetings, and financial oversight will meet some more, and we're going to make a determination. And this is one of those things that we'll talk more about.
I want it, I just don't know if I can afford it.
I did want to add that, to your point, I do appreciate, taking feedback in and kind of addressing the capital budget to kind of prioritize what the department felt was the most appropriate, and considering that we will have to continue to go through things. So I did want to acknowledge that the feedback was taken and appreciated, that you addressed some of the things.
Thank you.
Okay. So go ahead.
Just one last thing. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. We have made this same request since 2002. In 2003, it was actually placed in the budget and obviously and unfortunately removed for other reasons.
But what has happened is, and it's a little bit of a misstatement.
I apologize.
So, as you know, we have a capital plan, and the capital plan is a multi-year plan. And there has been a command post in various forms in a police capital budget, in a capital plan for many, many, many years. It never made it to year one. It was always in year 4 or 5 and continued to remain in year 4 or 5 year after year after year because other priorities trumped it. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we had other priorities that needed to be done, and this took a back seat. I think that it really became a priority probably more so than ever before in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 or 3. Listen, I drove this thing. It's a manual transmission, double clutch, and hope that it starts kind of truck, but it ran. But when it stopped running, it really just became a big hunk of metal that you could sit in and keep out of the rain. But that's really not a practical vehicle in an emergency, because in an emergency you need to be able to go out and put the key in and start it right up. So that's really where
And
we're
the
at
air
with
conditioning works really, really well, so give it that credit. But yeah, no, I mean, I think we have a lot to consider, especially with the requests being made. But, considering the climate and things that have been happening, we got to just explore.
Will talk. So, all right. So I'm going to read the record.
Wait, sorry,
Yes,
just
that's
on
okay.
this, what's the estimated longevity on the vehicle? I mean, realistic, not we keep a bus for 40 years.
Well, no. I mean, the thing with these types of vehicles is it's never about the mileage. It's about the age. And I mean, so it's as long as so trucks last 15, 20 years before we remove them from the fleet when they're constructed of appropriate materials. Aluminum generally is what the bodies are made out of so that they don't corrode. I mean, in the Northeast, the devil is salt and snow and winters, right? So when you build something that doesn't corrode, and obviously there's steel in the chassis and things like that, but it certainly could be anticipated to last 15 years. I don't think that that's unreasonable at all.
Do we have a storage plan for it?
We could talk about that in the 2021 budget.
Yeah.
I do wanted to kind of qualify. So when people hear command post, they might think about different things. Obviously, those in financial oversight, we were able to visually see it. Just for the folks that didn't get to see the pictures, can you just kind of explain? Like, it's not a militarized vehicle, right?
No,
Like,
absolutely not. So our basically like the fire the fire investigation unit that we have. It's almost like that, kind of modified, but similar to that type of a vehicle.
Maybe you could just also send those pictures off.
Absolutely.
I think driving down to Flemington yesterday, I think Branchburg has a comparable unit.
They do.
Okay. So, all right, so it is.
I'll make sure that you get those I have those photos. I can email them to council.
If you're familiar with, in our local fire service, the rescue trucks for communities, Somerset, it's that kind of truck.
Okay, I think we've discussed the bus.
Okay. Number 9.
This is the DVR for our CCTV, for our cameras that we have in and around our building. There are currently 3 of them. 2 of them I know are 2004, and I believe the third one's 2006. Don't quote me on the exact date, but it was somewhere around there. They're still running on an XP format, so it makes it very difficult to play the videos. And what happens now is the hard drives were so small that back then used to get the, as I like to call it, kind of like the max headroom effect, where it's not a fluid video, it kind of jumps a little bit. So this would be a new DVR to replace, it would be just 1 to replace 3 that we currently have with the up-to-date technology.
So then we go to number 10, which is 4 fixed mount ALPR systems. ALPR would be automated license plate reader. What we anticipate on doing and hope to do was place these throughout strategic areas within the township, so that in the event that there was an incident or a crime, we would be able to get not only license plate information but photos of vehicles that were in the area. This data would only be accessible in the event that there was a documented reason for it, such as a crime. There are ALPRs stationed all throughout some of the surrounding towns, and this would kind of be a system that would work in conjunction with them.
You need a warrant to access the data?
Not necessarily a warrant, but we would need a
probable cause.
Probable cause. So it's
So if
it's
we're
the
going to get
same
into
burden
legal
of proof.
terms, yeah.
Yes. We had originally asked for several more units in this, so we would look to do this as a multi-phase project, probably 2, maybe 3 years. But we'd originally requested 10. We obviously bumped that down to 4, so this would be a multi-phase.
4 is 2 locations.
Two locations.
It does it in both directions.
And then the last thing we have is 4 completely outfitted AR-15 rifles. This would be to replace rifles that we currently have in our stock. We have training rifles that have thousands and thousands of rounds through them, to the point where I was told by our armorers that they don't know that they can really make them safe anymore for training purposes. So at that point, other rifles that we have would be moved down to the training rifles, and these would be moved into the patrol force.
I have a question. The ALPRs, are they also, obviously not these if we buy them, but are systems like that allowed to be used by let's say, commercial establishments?
No.
They're not, so these are restricted to use by
Law enforcement.
law enforcement.
Yeah, so
Towing companies.
Into the mic, please.
The towing companies actually have plate readers on their tow trucks now. I'm not exactly sure how it's rotated in, but I believe it's in conjunction with the insurance companies with the tow trucks, for stolen vehicles.
So that's like an exemption that legislatively was allowed. It's not as though they're allowed in private industry or utilized in.
Those tow companies would actually be enforcing towing for specific cities. So it would be, they would drive around and say, oh, that car is on a boot list. So you see this a lot in larger cities. But
No,
as far as
you don't have to go
ours
into detail
no,
with that. I was
that's
just
not
wondering
this.
if there was a private entity that there was a way. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a, where is it in the book? There's before? No, back. Oh.
What are we looking for?
There's a section for OEM that has 2 items on it.
There you go.
It's OEM disaster shelter trailer and equipment for $30,000 and voice over internet phones for $1,300.
So real quick, the shelter would be the shelter trailer. That would be to increase the amount of people that we would be able to shelter in the event of a disaster. That was at the recommendation and urging of the New Jersey State Police. What was the exact number, Roy?
750 people were supposed to have cots and blankets for.
So this it would obviously
Gets us about halfway.
So that's the first part, and then the voice over IP phones would just be an upgraded phone system within the Emergency Operations Center.
Just the physical phones in our EOC. We have the infrastructure that's there. These phones are compatible with our current phone system.
Are these like speaker phones? Is that what it is, Brian?
Yeah, it's the
like the conference call phones, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So that will conclude the police department's presentation unless there are any other questions.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
guys.
all you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Township manager, who's he? All right. All the way in the beginning. I think it's first real tab there. So the township manager's budget is $282,650, with $240,000 of that the municipal budget contingency in my budget. So 240 out of 282,650. The overall budget shows a decrease of $10,000. There's been some adjustments. The $10,000 legal services, which is the overall decrease of it, is that due to our change in management of the police department to a public safety director, there was no longer a need to include $10,000 in the event that a hearing officer was necessary. Okay. Okay. Finance department, about three tabs away. Finance department, really, $3? So she topped John House.
Down 3.
She went down 3. He went up 5. She went down 3. So it's like only a net gain of 2. All right, so it was 330,000 and 330,103 down to 330,098. Obviously, this woman is budgeting to a penny here, so appreciate the fact that she's your finance officer. And the bulk of that, obviously, is the $322,500, which is our financial services and staffing of our finance department by the man sitting in the back that the mayor's looking at.
Can we cut that in half?
But the finance department obviously operates on a very small budget, 1 township employee and 3 contract employees, plus the services of the contract financial advisor.
Which in truth gives us a lot of flexibility.
It gives us a lot of flexibility. And we have a very good crew working for us right now. The 3 women that work for Mr. Hodgelick are excellent, and we couldn't be happier with the services they're providing right now. So
it says on here that the contract expires June 2020.
Yeah, he's still on a fiscal year, the old fiscal year, so the budget will expire at the end of June. And
there will be no price increase. Is that what you budgeted?
It was so.
That's what it says.
I know it says, and there's been no discussion of that. But we have one last financial oversight meeting on the 4th Monday of this month that I believe Mr. Hodgelick will be in attendance for, and perhaps he'll ask for some private time. I'm not sure yet. He hasn't indicated to me. He'll be up here very soon if you'd like to ask him.
I just read it.
I know. Yeah. See, he needs to make sure he never misses a meeting. So, okay, so that's finance. Now, all other lines of expenses and revenue. Okay, so right behind, I'm gonna put my glasses on again. So you have the audit as your audit services within that finance tab. The audit is proposed at $42,200. That's based on a discussion with our auditor, I believe, and it's a contract we awarded. So that's flat from the previous year, and that's obviously mandated by law that an annual audit be done by an independent auditor. Okay.
Okay.
Next. Legal services. Oh, there it is. Yep. Legal services are budgeted at $565,000, which is flat from last year's $565,000. That includes $300,000 for $270,000 for general legal services, and $235,000 for tax appeals, and $60,000 for, I'm trying to remember. This is terrible. I need to turn to the subpage. I should know these things by now.
Eastern Environmental
No,
Law?
that's part of it. So that's part of it, Councilman. $30,000 is for Eastern Environmental relating to the compressor, and $30,000 is remaining for the final real estate transaction costs that were being done by Dakotas. We used Dakotas, Councilman, in 2019 as well for real estate closings with open space.
Oh, not the legacy work.
This is 2019 that now are closing in 2020 because Dakotas was still being utilized for certain real estate transactions. That's not anticipated in 2020. However, we have to budget a certain amount to finish out the projects that they started.
Thanks for clarifying, because I thought the legacy work was done.
Yeah,
This is specifically different.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep, that's what it was for. Okay. Yes, that comes right after animal control is volunteer organizations. So 8, the volunteer fire departments is at $46,774, which is the same as $46,774 in 19. It goes unchanged. So I have a question, and I don't have the answer to this, so I'll ask the finance officer. It's at about 54%. Is it just because it wasn't done for the insurance and surety bonds?
That's how much we budget each year based on paying out insurance.
That's what that is, right.
and
So this is the death benefit?
Right. If
So-
we do not use it, we put it towards a reserve, so hopefully one year we won't need to
Right.
budget for it.
So we're self-insured as far as a $10,000 policy for active and life members of the volunteer fire service, and this is what funds it. And there's money that went and thank you for reminding me because I was having a mental block there. Okay, any questions on that one? Well, it says it right in the bottom. I guess I should read further. Okay, next. I know. Okay. First aid contributions in the same tab. First aid contributions is budgeted at $65,000. It was budgeted at $65,000 last year as well. You can see the insurance, the 090 is the same thing that for first aid squad members as I just discussed for fire. The 58.5 is the annual contributions to those active first aid squads that are providing services to Franklin Township, and it's based on a percentage of the overall calls that they answer in a year.
So that includes like Kendall Park and Rocky Hill?
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
it does. Out of town or in town, it's divided up over all the actives. Again, just on a simple math. If there's 10,000 calls and you handle 2,000 of them, you get 20% of the pot. That's just how it works. We've done that since the middle 2000s, I believe, is how it's been determined.
And our officer is Sergeant Brian Farrar, so we validate that with him in October of every year. It's East Millstone, Kendall Park, and Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
Next would be the unclassified.
Which tab?
Unclassified is full next group. It's right under utilities. So you go through a whole group of tabs, and it's the second one down, right after
I
utilities.
got it. Unclassified.
And in this tab, for those of you that didn't take the pages that I gave you, the third one down is reserved for tax appeals, and we reduced that amount. So what was in your original book has gone down $250,000. So that's in, the new page is in the little group that I gave you earlier today.
Okay, so under unclassified, the first sheet is for accumulated leave. This year, we're budgeting $800,000, which is an increase of $100,000 over $700,000. So this is money budgeted in OE that then gets moved to reserve at the end of the year. That is in the event that we have to cover. It's kind of and so accountants are good at explaining this, Mr. Hodgelick. I'm not so good at explaining this, but I will try. So this is money that we budget every year that we put into reserve in the event that there was some catastrophe and we went and bankrupt and we had to pay all of our employees their accumulated leave, which would cost us millions and millions and millions of dollars. And to be able to cover the costs of accumulated leave is significant in bond ratings, and it's one of the things that we have an obligation to do under, I'll say, general accounting practices, but we won't get into the terminology because we don't follow the same thing as every other state in the country. But yes, Mr.
This is funding a trust?
No, this is funding a reserve.
Funding a reserve.
Trusts are different than reserves.
However, when employees retire, their vacation that we pay out, or their sick time we pay out, comes out of this fund. Last year, we took out more than we put in, and that's why it's going up the $100,000. We're also taking a proportion out of the water utility, and we've done that for the last couple of years too. We're supposed to be building a reserve. The last year, we actually wound up drawing money out of the reserve. That's why it's going up, even though it's a tight year.
How much is in the reserve?
It's not even, I don't have the number right off the top of my
you can
head.
get that.
Yeah, I don't have that with me right now.
Not as much as we're supposed to, because what we're supposed to have is really an astronomical number.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
You can get me that number.
Sure. We have a meeting on the fourth Monday of the month. You'll have it. Salary adjustments. Salary adjustments are budgeted at $100,000. They were budgeted at $100,000 last year. These are for salary adjustments that occur as a result of contract settlements that then have, if we have not budgeted in the budget on an expired contract or for retroactive pay.
Okay.
Tax appeal refund. Tax appeal refund was budgeted at $500,000 in 2019, and we're raising that to $750,000 this year. There have been a couple significant tax appeal cases that we've had to pay refunds on that have depleted the reserve. And so we're recommending an increase of $250,000 to $750,000.
So this says $1 million, it's been changed?
It's one of the pages that was
It's one of the pages in your bundle. It's a new page.
Okay.
Yep, that's one of the new ones. It was originally when we looked at this, we were going to raise it to $1 million. We realized that based on the amount in the reserve on 12/31 and anticipated tax settlements and the potential for tax court findings in 2020, we felt that $750,000 is sufficient to add to the reserve. It was going to be 100%. It's down to 50%. I believe we've discussed it, and that's where it's at. The next is tax title lien foreclosure, and that's $50,000. We have to budget for when we redeem liens. So if a lien, this is the property maintenance one. Okay. So this is, I'm sorry, yeah, no, this is different. But when you said tax title lien redemptions, I thought that's what this was. This is tax title lien foreclosures. This is when we have to, when somebody doesn't take care of their property and we send a contractor out, we have to pay that contractor. In return, after that contractor is paid, a lien is placed on the property to recoup the cost upon sale or redemption of the lien. So it is in a way money in, money out, but it might be money out to the contractor this year, and it might be money in to redeem the lien 5 years from now. So obviously it's not the same as some of those other in and out expenses.
Surprised it has its own line item and budget, as opposed to
Got to pay the contractor from somewhere.
I know, but, okay, go on.
All right.
Are these sold?
I was just wondering as I passed by it today, what's going to happen to Susanna Schilling's house. That was a house that there was a question of cleaning up around.
Oh, I don't know.
No, you don't know.
Off the top of my
Nothing
head.
new.
So there was a question down this end?
Yeah, no, I was asking, is this also sold just like the other?
So no, these are liens that we hold.
Okay.
We're the lien holder. When we pay the bill, we're the lien holder. So this is a special lien that is placed against the property, and until it's redeemed, the sale can't sell clear.
Okay.
Do I have a sheet for it?
$2,000.
All right, yes. So and I think I've explained this in previous years. So the state of New Jersey has this requirement that there be a contingency budget in every municipal budget. I took the budgeting class years ago. Whether $2,000 is just a magical number that everybody uses, or it's the one that's actually required that it has to be at least $2,000, I think that's the second. So every municipality in the state of New Jersey has this line in their budget where they budget $2,000 in this contingency. I don't think anybody budgets more than that, and clearly that's not really, it's not intended to be like the use that we use my budget for, but it has to be there, so it's there.
You can't spend money unless you have a budget line.
Right.
So by having the $2,000 placeholder, if we would need more money, we then move money into that line.
But you could also, to argue that, you could budget $1 in that line too, and it would still have money in it. But whatever, the state says 2,000, and I don't. That's so it's there, and it's been there for eternity. Statutory expenses, 2 tabs away. So the first one is the public employee retirement system, then the defined compensation retirement, and PFRS and Social Security, and that all adds up to $6,340,800, and that is an increase of $164,856. Obviously, they're statutory. That means we must make them. Actually, my next tab is the reserve for uncollected taxes.
Oh, that's positive.
Yes. So under statutory, the next one is reserve for uncollected taxes. This is formula driven. It's the insurance policy that the state mandates that all municipalities factor into their budget. This is to make sure that we have enough cash on hand, basically. It's called the reserve for uncollected taxes, but really what it is it's an insurance that we have enough cash on hand to pay all of our partners that we collect taxes for.
I don't see the tab.
It's in the same tab.
Oh.
Right
It's
after
statutory.
Statutory, second page. So is that,
Second page.
is that a percentage? Because I noticed it's
It is not
5 million
such,
straight.
it is a percentage, but it is not just a straight percentage. It is a very it is a very complicated, formula-driven process. In fact, you spend like 3 days on just calculating the rut when you take the budget class to become a finance officer. There's a whole worksheet that has to be done, and I'm not going to bore you with all of the details.
I'm not asking you to.
But we round this number based on a calculation that's done, and this is what the number is, and it's been that number for the last several years.
And this is different than our general fund surplus.
No, this is the reserve for uncollected taxes is just a number, so the state makes you budget a number. So we collect money for the Board of Education, the county, fire districts. So this is their insurance that you have cash on hand at all times. If you have this in your budget and you can't spend it, that means you have to have, for us, $5 million or a number. You could do the calculation to the penny, but there's really no point here.
It's a safety net for the allocations we have to make to other entities. I understand.
It's based on the percentage of tax we collect. So in essence, within the given year, we collect about 97% of the taxes. You have to establish the rut at least that. We're a little more conservative, and that's why it has stayed at 5 million, because we actually keep the percentage a little lower than that, just in case it's a bad year as far as collections go.
All right. Okay. Now, next tab. First one is interlocal health. The interlocal health is budgeted at $680,970, which is a contractual 2% increase over last year.
Get BOE? We had BOE first.
You have BOE first?
We did that one later.
All right.
Senior transportation. Senior transportation is budgeted at $85,418, which is an increase of $1,675 over last year. This is our contract with Somerset County to provide a driver for our senior bus. Good. So we did BOE transportation already? We did that? Yeah, yeah, that's why mine is there. Okay. Next one is, right. Let me get to it. So the next tab is courts. If you go to the tab after municipal court, you should see, as I get through all the subpages here. Okay. Prosecutor. Prosecutor is budgeted at $76,000. It was budgeted at $76,000 in 2019. Our municipal prosecutor and associate prosecutor are contractors. They're not employees. So that's why they're considered an other contractual item. Next tab is public defender. So public defender was budgeted at $18,000 in 2019, and that number has been increased to $35,000 in 2020, and there's a little bit of a discussion here about that. That's not just a raise for the public defender. Number one, the public defender is not only paid from the municipal budget, but is also paid from public defender fees that are collected as part of the public defender process in our courts. There are now additional hearings and pretrial hearings that are required in certain domestic violence cases, and a public defender will have to take action in a very short period of time and make appearances in Somerville for those cases because of the change in the law, specifically as it relates to the Bail Reform Act. And so there's been a need to increase this budget because there's additional costs associated with the public defender or the potential for additional costs associated with public defender cases. The next tab is library. This is formula driven as well. It's based on in and out. So it's tax collected, $3,561,968, which is up $43,083 from last year. Money collected, money to the library. Sure.
What is that?
It's based on a calculation based on your rateable base, and I think how many years back is it?
3 years.
3 years behind.
Yeah. We have zero control over it. It's state law.
I know that, but I was on how that number came about.
It's a calculation.
Third of a mil. There you go. The amount to be raised by taxes, it's 1/3 of it.
Over a 3-year average, or 3-year.
Yeah, it's a formula.
Yeah. Yep.
Debt service. So debt service, so the bottom line is what matters, total other expenses. Debt service this year is budgeted at $2,007,625, which is a decrease of $337,000. Don't be fooled by that number. It will go up next year. So we anticipate issuing bonds this year in the first quarter of this year. So and that those bonds will become payable beginning in 2021, which will increase the debt service in 2021. And the lease payments are right behind it.
What's SCIA?
Somerset County Improvement Authority.
Oh, okay.
So we budgeted $99,935, and we spent that much in 2019, so I'm anticipating that it's budgeted at $102,740.66, which tells me that Ms. Moody knows exactly how much this is going to cost, and it's $2,805.66 more. So we must have a 12-month bill for that one. There you go. And the last, and it's a tab for grants.
And that's another addition that you got in your group
Yeah.
of papers today.
Mm-hmm.
This is only the grant, this is only the one grant that we've officially been notified about this year. There will be more that get added as Chapter 159, and then the match contingency that we leave ourselves, because some require, like the Municipal Alliance grant, requires us to provide a match.
Okay, so this shows a decrease of $11,880.47 on an $86,971 budget. That number could change even before we introduce the budget. Depends on what actions are taken on various grants that we know of that are recurring. If we have the ability to put them in, we will. Otherwise, like Kathy said, we just add them. You see them throughout the course of year on a consent agenda as a Chapter 159 addition.
Did we put the FYI grant in here?
I'm sorry?
Did we put the investors grant in here for FYI? But I mean, if we...
You could, if we get it before we prepare the budget document, we could add it. Otherwise, we just add it by resolution.
Okay.
I mean, it gets added one way or the other. It doesn't matter. We add them all throughout the year. Like I said, you hear them, and no one even really thinks about it. That's just an amendment to the budget, basically. That's what a Chapter 159 is. It's amending your budget.
They go through on your consent agenda at the various budget meetings.
Is the matching fund in kind or actual cash you have to?
Depends on the grant.
The money you see here, the $24,000 for this year, is actual cash match where we put towards the program. There are other, like Municipal Alliance, we have to put 25% cash match, but there's also in-kind services that are not reflected here. I actually reduced it from the $34,000 last year because we didn't need to spend it. There was another grant we thought we were getting that would have required a match, so I reduced it again.
So that is all of the appropriations request and the budgets and the OE budgets. I asked Mr. Hodgler to come up here just to talk a little bit about our anticipated revenue for 2020 and what our revenue looks like as we close out 2019 and start to look at some of the numbers as it relates to that, because obviously, so we have a balanced budget, and we have to make sure that our appropriations match our revenue, and vice versa. So while we have numbers here that are preliminary that we'll work on as far as our appropriations are concerned, we need to kind of hear what our anticipated revenue is. So, Andy?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Pleasure to be here. As Mr. Vornlocker indicated, we're still in the process of putting all the numbers together, getting the books closed out for 2019, but happy to report that the revenue stream for 19 was actually pretty decent. There are positive variances in almost all your revenues that you received in 19. That includes the current fund and also the water. The miscellaneous revenues for current fund was up about, the variance was positive, almost about $1.5 million. And in the water, in terms of the rent collections and connection fees and what have you, that was up about $1.1 million over what was budgeted for 2019. So I think where we stand now is we're going to get the numbers finalized for fund balances as of 12/31/19. We'll have further discussions with Finance Committee with respect to levels of appropriations, level of anticipation of revenues, and where then the tax rates might fall. But again, it was good to see that the revenues were strong in 19, and looking forward to that continuing the trend in 2020. Just a real quick point of clarification: the accumulated sick and vacation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a real astronomical number. That runs about, the calculation runs about $5 million and change, is what your liability is. The real astronomical number that we talk about is your pension.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Sometimes I mix those two up, but yeah, there are two. You're right.
And so your trust, actually it's a reserve. It's in your trust fund, and that level is about $500,000. So you're about 10% funded as to what you would have if everyone retired all at the same point and had to get paid out and what have you. But that's what.
But the pension liability is where our number is astronomical.
Right, and the OPEB liability also.
The OPEB, right.
And we've been complying with everything we're supposed to comply to with. That's just
absolutely
the position the
yes,
state
absolutely.
has
It's really
put us in.
that's dictated by what the state requires in terms of how your level of funding.
Okay.
Right. The problem is that the way that we do things in New Jersey doesn't conform with generally accepted accounting practices and anywhere else. And the bonding agencies, our bond rate is a comparative to across the country municipalities. So it's apples and oranges. So we're being held to a standard that we can't meet because of New Jersey's method of doing things.
New Jersey's not alone, though. There are
Are there others?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's plenty of other states that struggle with pension liabilities that they're not funding on a timely basis.
Oh, you're just talking overall. Oh, no, absolutely. I'm just talking about the way that we calculate things sometimes. But the overall fund, listen, that's just the state and the township share in the unfunded portions of all of the municipal pensions.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if council will indulge me. We have two members of the public who have sat here through this after they came out of their open space meeting. If we could open to those members of the public for 2 minutes each.
So moved.
We have a second. Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would either of you like to come up? Yes. Ms. MacGyver. I think when I was on Tough, I think I only went to one budget hearing, and then I learned my lesson.
Well, hearing where my money is being spent.
Very good.
Question, I realize in some communities they have caps on unused absentee time by the public workers. For instance, 2 days a month, 10 days a year, 30 days total, and after that it becomes a use it or lose it. Is there something that prevents that?
All of our sick time is governed in, either by municipal ordinance or by collective bargaining unit agreements, and there are no caps on that, not on use it or lose it, no. There's caps on how much money is paid out for a number of our employees. Nearly all, well, actually, for all of our employees, there are caps. The caps vary upon retirement on to how much can be paid out. It can be fixed at a dollar amount, or it can be fixed at number of hours of sick time, depending on the bargaining unit. But that's how the caps are here in Franklin.
Has that ever been discussed in the collective bargaining?
Sure, lots of things are discussed at collective bargaining, Seal. That's not something that the unions are just quite ready to give up, but most of them are capped at the number that has been established by the state of New Jersey,
So
which is what our municipal
there is a
ordinance
state-
is.
So there is
There's a state law,
limit.
$15,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was the question.
Mm-hmm.
McConnell? Motion to close?
Motion close.
Second.
Council just breathed a heavy relief. All in favor of closing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Don't worry, we'll get an email.
Motion is carried. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved, and do we have a second? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Be well, Franklin.